In this video, I'm going to show you how to solve a common problem when you're trying to create a multi-user MCP server for an existing backend API. The backend API might be authenticated using an API token, or in this case, OAuth. I've got one identity provider that's authenticating the backend service, and a different identity provider that's being used for the agentic part, the MCP server, and the agentic client that I'm using, Goose. My backend service is an order status service. I have built an MCP server for it, and then I'm using Goose as an agentic client. Goose has the ability to create recipes, which are just pre-canned ways of interacting with your agent. So let's go ahead and start the agent. Goose automatically loads the order status MCP tool for us and gives me a sample prompt. So I'm going to go ahead and send that prompt to the agent. The agent calls the tool and tells me that the call from the MCP tool to the backend service is not authenticated, and I need to visit a URL to enable the MCP server to access the backend service. I put that into my web browser and I need to log in. Here I'm logging into the agentic side, so this is Keycloak used for authentication. Now I'm going to be logging in as an administrative user, so I'm going to see the entire Solo Enterprise for Agent Gateway dashboard. This includes things like the ability to show your gateways, your routes, your destinations and policies, as well as a playground. And of course, the all-important list of elicitations that we're going to use in just a moment. On the dashboard for Solo Enterprise for Agent Gateway, we've got a number of useful charts and metrics that show you how the system is performing. Now, let's proceed to authorize the elicitation that's being created for us when we tried to call the backend service through the tool. This takes me across to auth0. This is the IDP that's being used to protect that backend service. This is a fairly common scenario when you have many services built over a number of years or being used from external providers. The identity domain for each is different. As you can see, I have a totally different identity that I'm logging into this IDP with. Now, the dashboard tells me that the elicitation is complete. That means that Agent Gateway now has the correct token for this user to log in to that backend service. If I logged in as a different user to Agent Gateway, I would see a different list of elicitations. So, now we're back in the client, and I tell Goose that I'm authenticating now, so it should try the request again. As you can see, it goes off. It calls the order status service, and this time it returns the order status. Now, let's take a quick look at the architecture. As I showed in the demo, my user is using Goose. Goose has a token from the internal IDP, Keycloak, that it uses to send to the tool. That tool is protected by Agent Gateway. Agent Gateway acts as the ability to control access to tools based on policy. Agent Gateway can also act as a virtual tool server where it can multiplex multiple different MCP servers and tools into a single endpoint. The call then proceeds to the tool. The tool needs now to call the backend service. It does this again via Agent Gateway. Agent Gateway detects that we don't have the right token to call the backend service, and so it returns the message about requiring the user to get the token through the tool and back to the client. The user then visits the portal, completes the token workflow, and tells the client to continue. The client then goes back through the Agent Gateway and the tool to make the call to the backend service. This time, when the call goes through the Agent Gateway, it detects that it does indeed have the right token stored for accessing the backend service and is able to swap the tokens. Now, the call goes through and out of this domain and into a different domain of identity, but this time with the correct token. It's able to call the backend service, validate the token against the external IDP, and return the result to the user. Finally, let's take a quick look at some of the code. Here, I've got an MCP server. I built it using KMCP, a tool that we built to make it easy to run MCP servers in Kubernetes. And I built the tool using FastMCP. I added a couple of simple tools that I was just using for debugging the service. And then I added the order status call. It's really simple. all it does is pass the request through to the backend. The backend then responds with the relevant information about the order and passes this back as an MCP call to the client. Of course, in reality, your MCP server would be considerably more complicated than this one. So, to recap, in this video, I've shown you how you can use Solo Enterprise for Agent Gateway to solve a common problem you have when building MCP servers. How do you authenticate the call from the MCP server to the backend for a multi-user MCP server?